Welcome to In the Zone. I am Craig Zimmerman, and we got another celebrity in front of me here. Welcome, Steve Motte.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So, Steve, when I called you, you said that it's probably not going to be that exciting, but what I find exciting is just learning maybe one or two things about somebody like yourself sitting across that maybe some of your former students didn't know. You were in the district for a long time, so we'll get started and say, where were you born and raised?
Well, I went to Port Huron Northern, raised out in the country, Jet Blaine. Some people might be familiar with that, but graduated in 1980, Port Huron Northern many years ago, and then ended up playing some college football in Adrian.
Okay. So you went to, back then in Port Huron, there were three schools most of your high school career, right?
Yeah, we had Northern High and Port Huron Central. Which
and Central closed around 80, 79?
80 was my last year. I think they were still going. When they had millage issues in 81 is when they shut it down, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of our local people don't even know that because it seems like a lifetime ago.
No, and my parents went to Port Huron Catholic then.
Okay.
That was at old SC4, and then Port Huron Catholic went to where Port Huron Central was, and then it became Port Huron Central High School.
Yeah, and Port Huron Central was over where technically where Menards would be.
Yeah.
So the parking lot of Menards, Port Huron Central. So back, I guess just a question there. So back when you played in high school, it had to be quite a competitive thing having three schools.
Yeah, well, Northern and Port Huron High were Class A schools, and then Port Huron Central was Class B, and there was the old St. Clair Area League, which was Marysville, Marine City, Port Huron Central, back then. And we were in the Eastern Michigan League back then, where we were playing Sterling Heights, Stevenson, Mount Clemens, East Detroit, and Mount Clemens was a big school back then, and now they've had the enrollment decline. So, people don't probably remember the Eastern Michigan League even.
It's funny, if you go to the site that, there's a football site out there, michigan-football.com, and you can see on there a lot of people, ECL, I know, because the list Port Huron's under that way, of which league they were in. So you went ECL to SCAL to the MAC.
Right.
So, what did you play in high school?
Well, I played football, basketball, baseball, track. Couple years of baseball, and then my sophomore year I stopped playing that and I ran track, and I ended up fortunate to play college football, and so I focused on just being in shape, working on what you need to work on to play college football. So I ran track. That benefited me more than playing baseball.
Sure. Who were your coaches back then?
Jim Bates was Port Huron Northern varsity coach. Dan Hanton was my varsity basketball coach. Pete Woods was track. Larry Klink was baseball. Okay. Ken Semmelsberger was at Port Huron Northern. Port Huron High, then, and he just retired out of Cardinal Mooney, athletic director. So a lot of names.
Yeah, Ken's retired a couple times.
Walt Braun was a Marysville coach, back there. Bob Scavich was, I think, up in Deckerville, maybe around that time, so. Yeah, a lot of old names that people might remember if they're old as we are.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so going back to the track days, it's like, you don't feel that old in most days, but do you remember the days of running on cinder tracks?
I don't think we ever did.
No? Okay.
No, Northern had the rubber track, I don't know that any place, like football nowadays,
turf.
Everybody has turf.
Right.
So. Yeah, no, I don't remember that.
Marine City had a cinder track. I didn't run out, but my brothers did. So I do remember that. Once or twice a year you'd hear of a kid falling in cinders, and that's a whole different story there. So family, siblings, give me a little background.
Yeah, I got two brothers. My mom raised us. I was about 11 years old. My parents got divorced. My mom raised us all of us went to college. My middle brother, I'm the oldest of the three, and I got a brother a year younger and another brother 5 years younger. Okay. So we grew up in Port Huron.
Which was real rural out that way then, right?
Yeah. It's I think, if you know where the big boy is in Port Huron, there was nothing out past. There was a Kmart,
right?
But now the mall and all that stuff. So there was real rural out there.
Going west there was nothing.
Yep.
So, So explain playing high school football. What position were you at?
Well, back then we played the straight T, which is, probably people don't understand it anymore. So I was a left halfback.
Okay.
Coach Bates' son Brian was the right halfback. He played college football at Eastern Michigan back then, and we didn't go two ways. We had enough players at Port Huron Northern. We had two platoon, and so we were strictly offense, and was recruited to Adrian College. Actually, by accident, they were watching Steve Sachs, who played at Port Huron High. We're watching his film, and I was on that film. And
is that right?
Yeah, so that's a story that Coach Adrian,
okay,
told me anyway.
Now, Brad Bates, is he the gentleman that was the athletic director in
yeah,
Boston
Brad.
College?
Did I say Brad?
I can't remember.
Yeah, Brian was the halfback next to me. That was his younger. Brad played at Michigan, was athletic director at Miami, Ohio, athletic director at
Boston College?
Vanderbilt.
Okay, Vanderbilt.
And then Boston College.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to know those kind of people. My middle son, or my youngest son, was recruited at Miami, Ohio when Brad was athletic director there.
Okay.
So he came to the recruiting, talked to Tyler about Miami, Ohio, and talked to him about Michigan, and told him, can't go wrong either school.
So you got a little inside track there.
Tyler chose Michigan, but yeah, it was very neat.
Okay. So you go on to play football at Adrian.
Yep.
Halfback?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 years I played fullback, and 2 years at halfback, and we were fortunate enough to have very good coaches, very good players. Otherwise, you don't win. And
right.
So we were able to make the national championship playoffs, lost in the semifinals. Last second 2-point conversion, but
and you can remember, it's like I say in a lot of scenarios, you can't remember what you had for lunch yesterday, but you can remember that game.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. Augustana, Illinois, and but lucky enough to play with some good players. We, in 4 years we were 35-4, and
wow.
Met my wife there. Had a great 4 years of playing football. Some good friends still, which is as anybody knows who plays sports,
right?
Whether it's high school or college, your best friends are mostly the ones you played sports with.
Yeah.
Still are, and so enjoyed those 4 years there.
Okay. So you got what kind of degree from Adrian?
I got a degree in education.
Okay.
Health, PE major with a social studies minor. And then about 4 years after we got out, my wife and I both got administration degrees. Never used them.
Okay.
At that point, when being a teacher, a master's degree meant you get a little bump in pay. So we were able to get our master's before we had our kids, and so I was able to get a job in Croswell, Lexington to start, and then was fortunate enough to be hired down here in St. Clair. Rick Rose, Ron Miller hired me as a football coach. And
what year roughly?
I came down to St. Clair in '93.
Okay.
I was 7 years up in Croswell, Lexington.
Okay.
Came down here in '93, and that put my wife and I both in the same school district. When I was telling you off camera that 3 or 4 years in a row, our spring breaks were, not the same.
Opposite,
so somebody was in school, somebody was in spring break, and so it was very fortunate to be able to come down here and enjoyed 27 years of teaching in East China until I retired. This would be year 3.
Okay. So backing up, say, to Croswell, Lexington, was Tony Monte there when you were there?
Tony Monte's wife, Joan, was there.
Okay.
Tony had moved down here to St. Clair and built a great, basketball program down here.
Sure.
So, when I got the job down here, it was nice that Tony and I had, through his wife, had known each other when I got down here, and he, was congratulating me about the football job
and the institution that is basketball from Tony Monte and Fred Shaw.
Yep, they did
sort of permeates through the school.
Great athletes, great work ethic that Fred and Tony developed. Like you said, especially in basketball, football, baseball, which is baseball has had a nice run at St. Clair. Girls softball that I was involved in for 20 years at St. Clair was growing right now.
Yeah, yep. There's no letting up there. So when did you decide to become a teacher?
Well, I played, sports my whole life and played college football and stuff. And back in the early 80s, I graduated in 1980, 81, 82, teaching, economy was struggling, automobile industry was struggling, and teaching wasn't really. So I took a year of just taking classes, business classes, other classes, and actually I decided I like kids, I like sports, I love it. And so I'm just going to go get a teaching degree and see what happens. So I actually ended up having to go 4.5 years.
Okay.
I did my student teaching that extra half a year because I had taken classes not towards education that first semester in freshman year, which kind of helped me out because I ended up being a grad assistant on the football program that year and did my student teaching at Adrian High, and so that really helped. But I just had to do what I wanted to do, not
right.
what the jobs were then. I knew I wouldn't have been happy behind a desk. And
what I've found from talking to a lot of individuals too is that when you're 21, 22, 23, 24 years old, it's not necessarily that you're always drawn into one thing specific. It's sort of like, well, I like that, so let's try it and see where it goes, and pretty soon you're into it.
Yeah. Sometimes you get to have a job in the summer, so wow, I really like that, or something.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't like this job. I'm not going to pursue that any further.
Sure.
But sports was my draw. I was fortunate to enjoy sports and be successful at Port Huron Northern and in college, and I just in kids and students, and 35 years of teaching, no regrets.
Sure. So now you're still involved in sports in a way, right?
Yep.
So your son is playing NHL hockey. Let's talk about that. So when did he start it? 10, 12 years old?
Well, my oldest son, CJ, is 3 years older than Tyler. And at that point when CJ was 6 or 7, the Red Wings were winning Stanley Cups every other year or a couple years in a row. And he wanted to get into hockey.
Sure.
And so Tyler was tag along because he was only 3 or something like that. And Tyler will tell you that CJ is his idol. And because CJ got into hockey, Tyler got into hockey. And so Tyler just kind of followed along and also, developed his own path. Tyler is a forward, and CJ was a goalie, and had a successful 4 years at Ferris State and 11 years of pro hockey, minor pro, and he's retiring this year. And Tyler was lucky enough to have some good coaches, in Port Huron. And we kind of just went Blue Water hockey, Port Huron hockey, AAA hockey, and Honey Baked. And Tyler was lucky enough to make the National Development Program, which is USA Hockey.
Is that in Ann Arbor?
That's it. It's it was in Ann Arbor when Tyler was there.
Okay. Yep.
It moved to Plymouth.
Okay. Yep.
So Tyler was fortunate enough to, be invited to the national tryouts, made the team, spent 2 years going to Ann Arbor Pioneer and junior, senior year, and then on to Michigan. And our comment is we just drove them and fed them.
You're along for the ride.
Yeah, we just drove them and fed them, and they did all the work, both of them.
Sure.
So I mean, doesn't happen. You and I were talking off camera. Tim Lolito, Jake Croningworth, Joel Seddon, Jeremy Carroll, all those kids from this area.
Yep.
Have just hard work, work ethic, being in, right place, the right time. Great coaches in the local area that help them along, and their hard work. So from Michigan, I guess to continue the story, Tyler played 3 years in Michigan, was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks. Decided after they had a really successful junior year to turn pro with Chicago.
So let me back up and stop you there. So he's 3 years into Michigan. He's playing college hockey at the highest level at Michigan, and he gets drafted. Is there a draft night that you're sitting in the living room?
No, we actually they get drafted at 18 years old.
Okay.
So he was still a senior in high school. So we drove. The draft was in New Jersey, where the New Jersey Devils play at the Prudential Center. So we drove to New Jersey and went to the draft and sat there. And
what was the expectation going into it?
Well, They have agents.
Sure.
You know, they're not technically called an agent back then, but they talk to the GMs of this, you know, different teams and stuff. And Tyler wasn't projected to be a first, second round, or maybe bottom third. I actually went fourth round.
Okay.
Middle of the fourth round. You know, a lot of you know, just we knew we weren't going to get called. You know,
Early.
You know, but then after he got called, you know, it was great. The Blackhawks had mentioned they were interested in him. He was there, and he got to go to the room where the Blackhawks, you know, administration was,
Sure.
the general manager, head coach, and all that. And then after half an hour or so, we followed into the suite, and I mean, it was great. I mean, unfortunately, there were some kids that we played hockey with, that Tyler played hockey with, that went and didn't get called. And
Sure.
you know, so but that would happen at 18 years old. So he knew in baseball and football and basketball, the draft is like their senior year.
Sure.
You know, in college, hockey, people already are drafted while they're playing in college, and they know, and then they have their rights for 2 or 3 years after their senior year. And so it's a little different than the other major sports.
Sure. So then, at what point does it become, say, oh wow, I think he's going to make it?
Well, when you get drafted, you know, they have his rights for 2 or 3 years. So
Sure.
then it's just a matter of how you perform.
Correct.
You know, if you develop and you continue to improve your speed, your skill, whatever, you know, your chances are greater. You know, and many people get drafted, you know, don't play and in an NHL game.
Correct.
You know, and then so it's just kind of a wait and see and how you develop and how the competition in that age group or that particular team may have an abundance of left wing forwards.
I was just going to say, I've had this discussion with people, and I think when you look at not just hockey, but pro sports in general, sometimes people that are maybe good enough to get to the next level don't, because, like you said, that position they're full of.
Yep.
You know, and they got great players at that spot, and they don't get injured. You know, as crazy as it may sound, there may be situations that 1 or 2 people getting injured at the right time opens up something for a young guy.
Yep. Yeah. In hockey well, I guess maybe football is the only one that's North American specific as far as sport.
Sure.
But hockey, you got Swedes, Czechoslovakia, you know, Canadian, Americans, like baseball and basketball. You know, the world plays those sports. Football, the world doesn't play really.
Right.
So it's not easier to make in the NFL.
Right.
But it's harder to make the other 3 major sports because the world is competing in
and
those.
they've got national teams too.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and it's the odds are against you, you know, and like I said, work ethic and being in the right place and the right coaches help.
So how many years has he spent, say, in the system of pro hockey?
He's finishing up his 8th year.
Okay.
Yeah, drafted by the Blackhawks. He's kind of bounced around a little bit by trades. He got traded with Artemi Panarin to Columbus for a year, and then got traded to Vancouver, which he spent 4 years in Vancouver and loved it up there. And then got traded at the trade deadline last year to New York Rangers for the playoffs, and was a free agent and signed with Ottawa, and then back to New York this year for the playoffs, which was expected. Both Ottawa and Tyler knew that it was a 1 year. So just kind of wait and see. This will be his 9th year, and you know, he's seen a lot of places, been a lot of arenas, the atmosphere, and luckily we've been able to travel a bit and watch him.
How many different places do you think you've been?
Well, we've probably seen thousands of hockey games, and between college and pros. College, they stay there for a weekend. They go to Notre Dame and play 2 games, and so we did a lot of travel. And then in the pros, you're in Dallas one, and you're in LA the next day. And I've been lucky enough to been on 2 dad's trips. One with Vancouver and one with Ottawa Senators this year, and you really get to see how pro athletes, you know, travel, and it's not as glamorous. You're getting in, you're getting in at 1 in the morning, to a different destination.
Right.
You got an 11:30 morning skate, and you got a 7 o'clock game, and there's not much rest in between. So 82 games, it's tough on them.
Long season.
We enjoy it from the television watching them, but
Yeah.
the dad strips really give you an idea of the hustle and bustle of them getting place to place.
Did they ever give the mothers a chance to go?
Well, I'm hoping my wife sometimes gets a chance to
Okay.
go. But the Red Wings did it one year, and they didn't have a successful road trip, so
Okay.
maybe they aren't going to do that. But I hope my wife gets a chance to go. It's great.
Okay. Still playing wing position?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
he's a wing. He just loves killing penalties, and third, fourth line player, and plays a role well, and that's what they like about him.
Okay. As far as the NHL goes, being that he's been in several cities, is there one that was better than another from his perspective?
Well, the organizations are always well run. From the trainers to the doctors to the coaches, they're always well run. It's just it's nice to be on a team that has skill and is success and wins.
Sure.
And I guess if you're playing in any pro sport, you just have to be on a team and get a paycheck, and there's places. Vancouver was beautiful, beautiful town, beautiful scenery. Ottawa had a lot of snow, which you had to deal with, but would you like to play in Florida? Or would you like to play with the Red Wings?
I think original six still means something to some, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I think players, if they have choices, they just want to be in the lineup.
And a good team that's competitive, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's almost like whether it's high school coaching, like college pros, winning cures a lot of.
Well, yeah. Makes a lot of people happy.
Yeah.
From parents to players to coaches, for sure.
Right. Appreciate you coming by today.
I'm glad you called me. It wasn't as bad as I thought.
There we go. If anybody wishes to suggest somebody, the phone number will be up there. It's my cell phone number. I find it interesting every day, and thanks for coming by.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the questions.
Have a great day.